Life is full of bittersweet transitions. It's difficult to know how these changes will impact us over time. They can hit harder than expected and may contribute to feelings of hopelessness.
You good, sir?
Or even thoughts of suicide.
We got this.
Support from friends and family can make a big difference to a veteran going through a difficult time.
We've got this, Dad.
Yeah. All right. Let's go.
I got this.
Together, our actions could help save a life. Learn more at veteranscrisisline.net.
Hello and welcome again to Oscar Mike Radio. I'm the host, Travis. Oscar Mike Radio is part of the Hubazoo Network. You can find out more on hubazoo.com. And as always, I want to thank my sponsors, Joyce Asek of Asek Real Estate, Reaper Detailing and Power Washing, and my supporters, Semper Savage, Cason Shaving Company, and Bottom Gun Coffee. Now, folks, this isn't a first for me, but it's kind of a first. I'm talking to, actually, yeah, that's not a first. I'm talking to my second Marine Corps lawyer. My first one was in Louisiana, and now I'm a little closer to home in Massachusetts. I'm with attorney Chris Sawin, U.S. Marine Corps veteran. Chris, welcome to Oscar Mike Radio.
Thank you. Pleasure to have you. Pleasure to be here.
Absolutely, absolutely. You know, we kind of got connected through Masshole Veterans and Masshole Marines, and here we are.
Yeah, no, I'm great to be here. Big supporter of Masshole Vets and Masshole Marines, so I'm happy that you're having me on board.
Absolutely, absolutely. And as I ask a lot of my fellow brothers and sisters, especially the Marines, tell us a little bit about your service.
Yeah, so I was Marine Corps Infantry from 2005 to 2009. I was stationed down at Camp Lejeune with 2nd Battalion, 6th Marines. I deployed to Fallujah in 2007, and then I came back to Camp Lejeune for about 9 months, and then I deployed again with the 26th Marine Expeditionary Unit aboard the USS Iwo Jima. Then I came back in 2009, then got out of the military in December 2009.
Awesome. So you get out of the military and you've been firing weapons and doing all kinds of cool grunt stuff. I wasn't a grunt, so, you know, it is what it is. And how did you go from grunt to like super probate lawyer on the South Shore of Massachusetts?
I never really thought that would happen, honestly. I was really a bad student in high school. Don't tell my clients that. But I was. I never should have graduated high school. But when I got out of the Marines, I used my GI Bill. I went to Quincy College. I started taking criminal justice classes. I want to be a police officer, like many other veterans want to do. And I had taken the list, the test to be on the list. I was number 2. They hired number 1. No harm, no foul. I kept studying. Another test came out for civil service. I was number 1. They passed me up. They took number 2. So I was at the point where I was like, what do I do? I'm well on my way to my bachelor's in criminal justice. I'm not going to be a police officer anymore. You can't even do anything much with a bachelor's in criminal justice outside of law enforcement. So I was like, you know what? I got to keep this housing allowance going, right? Because I don't have a job. So I'm going to switch from post 9/11 GI Bill to Voc Rehab, and they're going to extend my benefits for another 3 years. And I went to law school.
Just like that?
Just like that.
Where'd you go to law school?
I went to Suffolk Law. I finished up my bachelor's at Curry College, though I transferred from Quincy to Curry, and then I went to Suffolk Law. Great experience. It was awesome there. So, yeah, I have no regrets about it.
So you do the Marine Corps thing. You actually use your GI benefits. See, you know, don't be like, I used part of mine, but he actually used all of his. You have no excuse. You have no excuse. And you do this and you get into the practice of law. When did you decide to get into the kind of law you're practicing now?
So when I was getting ready to graduate law school, I had applied to a bunch of different law firms, and a lot of places just weren't hiring. It just wasn't a good time. This was like 2017. And so I was like, you know what? I'm just going to start my own practice because I don't have any other option. I can't just sit home because my GI Bill benefits are cut off at this point. And I started doing veterans law type cases with some discharge upgrades and appeals and things like that, just to kind of get people in the door and kind of get my feet wet with the community. And then I realized that all these veterans were having so many problems with divorce and child custody. And I had always kind of been interested in that in law school anyway. So I kind of merged from the veterans benefits stuff to probate and family law. And I thought that's been a much more beneficial experience for me in terms of trying to give back, but also help other people.
Well, as somebody who's unfortunately been through the probate court process, it's a minefield. And I say this not just from the lawyer experience, which I have a great lawyer, unfortunately for you, but my attorney is fantastic. Nothing personal, but it's a minefield when you go in there and realize that you're going up against somebody that you said at one point in your life you take a bullet for. How do you prepare your client for that battlefield?
Well, I think it's tough because there's a lot of family law is high stakes, high emotion, and you're dealing with someone's children, and there's really nothing more that someone wants to protect more than their kids. It's very instinctual. It's built into the reptile part of people's brains. And so it's really hard for them to detach emotion from what has to be done legally, from kind of maybe what I'm recommending. So I kind of take this approach whenever I talk to someone who's a potential new client. I kind of say that my style of lawyering is I grab the bull by the horns. I'm the one driving the bus. Like, yes, I'll give you options and what I think you should or shouldn't do, but ultimately I'm going to basically do what I think is right. But if you want me to do something else, that's fine. But you got to give me the latitude to really take charge and do what I do, and that's why I'm so successful. I've had clients that really put me on a leash and don't give me that latitude, and their cases don't end up as well. But people that give me the latitude to do what I want to do, I'm fairly successful. So a lot of it is not only am I someone's lawyer, but I'm also like part therapist, part friend, part like other VA type advocate, trying to like talk these people off the ledge a little bit to get them into the courtroom, to like bring them to the other side of the tunnel. So I wear a lot of different hats, and I kind of have to have a balance of all these different roles that I'm trying to take on. But eventually, sometimes just level with the person. Like if I was representing you, I'd be like, hey man, you're in a crappy situation. Like this is the situation and these are your options and they all suck. But what I'm telling you to do, you may not want, but that's what the court's going to do anyway, so you might as well just listen to me. And a lot of times leveling with people just works out well, especially veterans. Veterans don't like anything sugar-coated. They want it like straight talk, and they really appreciate that.
Straight talk's important, and it's tough to get. One of the things that a lot of my, buddies who are looking to go through this process is like, well, TV said this and TV said that. And I try to tell them that, what you see on TV is not what happens in the courtroom a lot of times. Can you go over some of the, myths of TV, if you will? What should a veteran expect or a person expect that's different from what they see on TV with regard to, court and family law?
Sure. So a lot of the court stuff that you see on TV is really criminal based, like Law and Order, that type of thing. Or it's more civil with people suing businesses or like a Mystic River type of movie. But family law is not widely on TV, and a lot of people get a lot of misconceptions, as you were saying, and a lot of what is on TV are trials. And cases rarely go to trial. I would say less than like 5% of family law cases go to trial because they're so expensive. It doesn't really happen, but what people see on TV is people that are objection, Your Honor, and talking back to the judge and talking to juries, right? Because there's no jury in family law, it's just the judge. That's called a bench trial. So there are no juries in family law on TV. That's all you see are trials with juries. And you see a courtroom with tons and tons of people. And sometimes it's like that, but a lot of times it's not. And it's very theatrical, obviously, on TV, right? Because people like drama. And it's not usually like that. Usually the attorney that you're going up against is someone you've done cases with before, and there's a good relationship.
That's what, see, now that personally was something that I had to get over was, my lawyer's talking to this other lawyer as if they're, going to get to Dunks and get coffee later. And I was educated that, it's not the first time they've had to do this. So I had to start taking some of the personal side of this out of this. It was hard to get my head around.
And you want that. You want your lawyer to have a good relationship with the lawyer on the other side, because it means your case is more likely to settle. What you don't want, and everyone has cases like this. I have lawyers on the other side that I really don't get along with for whatever reason. It happens sometimes, but if you can help it, you want two lawyers that get along. And I've had cases where I've gone to court and I say bye to the client, and then I go get lunch with the other attorney. It happens all the time.
So you're going through this. What's been some of your challenges in dealing with the veteran population? Because, I got to see it one time. I can't speak about it now, of course, but I got to see where, the veteran client, he was the, defendant, caused his counsel huge problems right there in the courtroom. And, I try to tell other veterans that, hey, look, you're paying this entity to represent you. Might be good to do what they tell you to do. And then I tell them, pay promptly. More than anything else, you all want us to pay promptly. Don't fool around with the money. And then the other thing is I'm like, if your lawyer tells you to do something, you might want to consider why they're telling you to do that. So how can a veteran put themselves in a position to advocate effectively for themselves?
I think telling the truth is really important. I've had clients where, maybe they don't know I'm a veteran or not, or how much information I actually know about VA benefits, and they'll try to BS me a little bit, maybe on what their benefits are, or how much they get paid. Like, oh, I'm 70% and I make this. I'm like, nah, you don't, because it's available online. Come on. So I think being really truthful, there's really three people you shouldn't lie to, right? You got your doctor, he keeps you alive. You got your priest, right, because you want to go to heaven one day, and your lawyer, because people like me keep you out of jail. So you shouldn't lie to those three people.
But people do.
I know.
People freaking lie to you guys.
It is, and that's the problem. Yes, lawyers love money, but anyone who's listening that's worked with me knows I'm super flexible. I'm not like that. But it is good to pay your fees. So, I think any veteran that wants to help themselves needs to help me by getting the information that I want out of them, and just being truthful. And, taking my advice. You wouldn't believe how many people hire me, pay me all this money, I give them all this advice, and they don't follow it, and then they lose in court, and they ask me, why did that happen? It happens.
But it does happen. Do you ever wonder why it happens? Because, I've been playing this game for a little while now, and I'm like, wait a minute. And my lawyer's like, yeah, that person went in front of the judge and her client didn't do what she told them to do. Is there any reason why you think people just blatantly ignore or disregard what you all tell them?
I think vets sometimes can be really stubborn, right? And it's kind of what I went into with people's kids. And people are very protective over children, and they're very protective over money. If you ever talk to anyone about their money, they're really secretive about that. They keep it really tight. And when you start messing with people's kids, that's when the Marine inside of you comes out.
Right.
And just, no, this isn't going to happen with my kids. And sometimes no matter what I say, or I can say, hey, I've been in front of this judge 1,000,000 times. What you want me to do is not going to happen. They still want me to do it because they can't get over that instinct of, these are my kids, I need to do what I think is right. And just because they have me by their side, they think that I'm just like a magician and I can just shield them from everything, and I can't.
So it's setting expectations.
Yeah, I always set expectations. I never guarantee anyone anything, even if in my head I think it's a slam dunk. I will usually say it's highly likely, highly unlikely, likely, unlikely, that type of thing. Or I'll say to the client, hey, I've been in front of, Judge Jane Doe 10 times in the past 60 days, twice of which have been this issue, and this is what she's done.
So let me ask you this, because unfortunately I've been through the probate process. It's a long story, not for this conversation, but how important is it for the person to collect the documentation you need and fill out the long form or short form properly and timely? How important is that?
That is really important. I'm kind of concerned that you know that terminology, right? Because it means you've been through it before, which stinks. But
Look, my attorney schooled me exactly on what to do, and I bought into all the things that you said. I bought into what she was saying way early in the game. But so yes.
yeah, so the difference in the long and the short form is whether you make over or under $75,000 gross before taxes. People have a hard time with that. So before taxes, under 75K, short form, over, you're on the long form. And when you sign this form, a lot of people don't realize. So you go to page 4 of the short form, you sign your name, Christopher Sawin. You're signing that under the pains and penalties of perjury. If you lie on that form, it carries with it potentially criminal consequences. And it can be used against you with the court. It can be used against you with the judge in a trial if you go that far. And 9 times out of 10, the court's not actually going to do anything to you, but it makes you look not credible. And when you lose credibility with a judge, you're done.
Wow.
And you get the same judge. If we have judge, so we're in Plymouth County, right? Say we have Judge Roberts, and I'm going to represent you on a divorce. I do your divorce, and you have to come back in on something else. You're going before Judge Roberts. You don't get another judge unless she, passes away or retires or transfers somewhere else. You're going to get Judge Roberts. So it's really good that you need to keep that good rapport with that judge.
So just like the military, situation, prior preparation, all of that figures into that. And I've seen it where people weren't prepared, and I've seen it where people were prepared, and it didn't take me long to figure out that, I'm paying for this. I might as well give her what, my counsel wants timely. So you have that aspect of it. And then, what do you think clients should do when they come to court? And it might seem like a noob question, but I mean, I'm like, dude, showing up in your Timberlands and blue jeans is not going to send the right message. So is it important in this day and age to wear a shirt and tie or suit and tie?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, you always want to look really good. There are definitely people that show up in, like you were saying, sweatpants or something, and you just look at them and you're like, what are you doing? Like, why do you think that's appropriate? It's not appropriate. And I always tell my clients before we show up, hey, dress business or business casual at least. You don't have to be in a suit, but some sort of slacks with a shirt and tie, something.
Well, one of the guys told me, he's like, look, if I show up in my work clothes, that shows the judge that I'm a working guy and, I'll get a break. And I'm like, I didn't understand that line of thinking.
No, I don't think I agree with that. I mean, I think, based off your financial statement, or you can say, hey, judge, I work for a living. I work for National Grid or whatever. Then the judge is going to take that at face value. Especially like whenever I do someone's financial, I always ask, I need your most recent pay stub, I need your W-2 from last tax year, and I will pre-fill out as much as I can. Then I'll talk to them and we'll go over all the expenses and everything. And I do quite a bit of due diligence
Hey,
on
you pre-fill out the forms?
Oh yeah.
What? Hey.
You got to talk to your lawyer.
I'm telling you what. Anyway, okay.
Yeah, so I basically pre-fill it out as much as I can, then I'll have a conversation. So I'd call you and I'd say, hey, what's going on with your, how much is in your checking account? How much do you spend on your electricity? All the way down. And then when it's done, I have you review it. You say, hey, Chris, good to go. We sign it. In terms of showing up to court looking like $1 million, that's phenomenal. You don't need to necessarily bring anything else with you because I'll have all your paperwork, right? I'm on top of the ball like that, so I'll have your whole client file. I'll have all these other copies and everything. But looking sharp is great. I can't tell you. Well, actually, I did. I will tell you. I won't say the person's name.
Okay.
I did a virtual hearing with the judge because during COVID they were doing everything by Zoom. I was getting out of the case for whatever reason, and my soon-to-be former client had shown up to the Zoom hearing he was outside with a tank top, drinking like a Coke or something, and I was like, oh my God. But I was getting out of the case, so I was like, I don't really care. But stuff like that, never a good look.
Never a good look.
Never a good look.
So you show up to court and, I was counseled and by several other, military attorneys, other attorneys who I've talked to is you're sitting there across from the other person or side by side, right? And you're going through the whole process of, if you're the plaintiff, if you're the defendant, but you're hearing things that might upset you. How important is that military bearing when you're going through that?
That's real important. And as you said earlier, I always manage people's expectations when we go in, and I usually say, hey Travis, your spouse is going to say some stuff. They might be lies, and they might not be true, and you might not want to hear them, but you just got to put your poker face on and just stand there. And if there's something you want to tell me, you're going to tap my arm, because what I'm going to do is I'm going to mute the microphone on the table, right, so it's not picked up on the audio, and you can whisper sweet nothings into my ear, or I will give you a pen and you can write it down. And if I think it's important, I will incorporate that into my argument to the court. And if I don't think it's important, I'm going to do like a stop that type of emotion.
My attorney, to her credit, kind of said the same thing, and we haven't had to have that because we know what the game is. But you're moving through some very, turbulent times in a person's life, veteran or otherwise. And then, a lot of people expect to have a decision that day. And that was really the first couple of times. I'm like, well, what's happening? Well, we'll wait. Why is that? Why does the judge not render a decision at the time that you're in court a lot of times?
My best answer, I think, is because they don't want to make an impulsive decision.
Yeah.
I mean, the arguments are usually heated as it is, usually hotly contested. And the last thing you want is for a judge just to kind of go off the whim and make a decision. Sometimes the judges don't have the time to read the documents. They just listen to the arguments, and then what they always say is, I'll take it under advisement, or I'll think about it, or counsel, I'll get an order to you out in 10 days or something. And what they're going to do is sometimes they'll take notes during the hearing, or sometimes they'll go back and listen to the audio, or they'll review the documents. They might look at, why were we in here last time, look at the financial statements, and then come up with some decision. But even when they do all that, it takes a while.
Yeah.
I mean, there's some judges in Plymouth County that, if I don't get a decision for 30 days, that's normal. There are other judges where I expect a decision within 7 days because she's on top of the ball like that. So you just have to, I can't stress how important it is for your attorney to know your judge, because every judge is different.
My attorney does.
Yeah.
And so, we plan accordingly. So you get the warrant or whatever to appear in court, or you have your lawyer file for the same. You go to court, you get through all this, and then you're waiting for the order, and then the order comes down. And, what do you talk with your clients when it didn't quite go the way it is? Or more importantly, I found that when it does go your way, there's an element of care that needs to be, taken into consideration then too. What kind of conversations do you have with somebody around that? Not specifically, but in general.
Yeah. Usually I try to get ahead of it by, as you said, even a couple times, managing their expectations going into the hearing. And then I always talk to the client after the hearing. If it's a Zoom hearing, I'll call them. If it's in person, we'll talk in the hallway or something. And I'll just say, well, I think the hearing went well for us. I think it didn't go well, or I'll say it's kind of wishy-washy. And when I get a favorable order, that's always good, right? I'm like the hero. I earn my pay, right? All the money that they pay me or don't pay me is worth it to them. And I usually, what I'll do is I'll email to them. I'll wait like 10 minutes and then I'll call and I'll say, hey, did you read the good news? Or I'll say, hey, I got the order. It's a little disappointing, but remember we spoke about this, right? We talked about this when we went into the hearing. I said that this is something the judge might do. I don't agree with it, but this is where we are. Let's see what we can do moving forward to either diminish what has happened or build upon it and try to change it later.
One of the things I wanted to broach is a lot of guys I talk to don't want to put the effort into this time in their lives because they feel that right off the bat that because they're a man, they do not have any kind of advantage in court over a woman or the mother of their children. And I kind of disagree with that. I'm like, it's a level of effort on your part that's going to predict how things are going to go within the terms of the law. And I kind of wanted you to opine on that because, I don't want individuals giving up before we even get started.
Yeah, I think I do agree with you. I think I think even if you go back as little as 5 to 10 years ago, I would have said that Massachusetts is overwhelmingly a mother/wife state in terms of custody and division of assets and things like that. I really think over the past even 5 years, there's been huge changes in terms of fathers' rights. I'm seeing a lot more judges kind of giving dads more like the benefit of the doubt. But I also have a lot of judges that are kind of stuck in the old ways of, hey, if dad wants, before it was called visitation, now it's called parenting time, right? Because it's got to be politically correct. So if dad wants parenting time, the status quo or what the average dad gets is 1 day during the week, every other weekend. It comes out to like 8 to 11 days per month, kind of depending on the month. And you get judges that no matter how great of a dad was, dad's getting status quo parenting time. And now you're kind of like, it's a huge uphill battle to come out from that. But you get other judges that say, hey, judge, during the time the parties were married, there were equal contributions and they both equally participated in caregiving responsibilities. Dad needs to have equal parenting time, and that'll happen. So I do think if I had to pick one side or the other, I think Massachusetts is definitely still a mother's state, but it's definitely evening out. And I wrote a blog about that on my website.
And we're going to have the link to that blog in the Oscar Mike Radio show post. And I'm with Chris Sawin, U.S. Marine Corps veteran and attorney at law in the South Shore portion of Massachusetts, Hingham. And we're talking about, his practice and how he approaches things. So, you're doing this and you've grown this business just, hey, I had to grow this, and you've grown and you've done this, and you've definitely been successful. How have you built your success as a practitioner of law?
It's been a lot of grit. It's been a lot of going to networking meetings, building those relationships. When I first started practicing, what I implemented was income-based fees. So based on your income, and I never even confirmed it. I just took it at someone's word. I know.
What?
Yeah. And I basically went as low as half off my hourly rate for any type of client. I was taking all types of stuff, but especially the family law stuff, half off. And sometimes I was, not making hardly any money from it, but it was getting people in the door. And if I do something good for you, you're going to tell someone else that needs the same thing.
Just
and
like
that
the Marine
builds
Corps.
up, just like everything else.
Right.
People like birds of a feather kind of flock together, right? So if you're going through a divorce, you probably know someone else that's going through a divorce. Or has other issues that need a family law lawyer. So that kind of just built up.
Income-based fee.
I don't do that anymore, though. Yeah, I do give breaks for vets because I love vets. But
still, some of your peers must have been like, "Are you out of your mind?"
Yeah, they were not happy telling me I'm watering down the hourly rate on the South Shore. But I was fresh out of law school, and so I felt like I was out for blood. Like I had to prove myself. And I was just like, I don't care. I'm going to take as many people in the door. I don't care what I don't even care if they pay me at that point. I just want to get the experience, build up the book of business, and then build off of that.
So one of the things that happened through COVID was a lot of, probate issues. A lot of husbands and wives found out just how much they didn't like and love each other. And we're coming out of COVID now. How did COVID impact your business?
Boomed. Honestly, it increased at least 200%, which is sad, right? It's kind of sad to say that, but listen, when you're stuck at home for months on end and the only person you're seeing is your wife and you can't see your girlfriend, that's going to cause a lot of problems, right?
So we're going to kind of wind it down with this then. In your experience, because, my attorney answered this differently, so I've got to ask you, based on your experience with all this and the fact that your business boomed, what's the case for love and marriage, Chris? Yeah!
Listen, people are always going to get married, right?
But should they get married?
Absolutely, right?
Oh, come
Listen,
on.
I don't need to promote divorce. That happens on its own. I don't even need to do that. I promote marriage. I want people to have loving marriages, right? Come on. We want a vet to go out there and take a 15% interest rate on his Mustang and get married. Why not? That's a joke. Don't do that.
Don't ever do that.
Don't ever do that. That's bad advice.
Absolutely, 100%.
That wasn't even legal advice.
But still, you're advocating for an activity with a 50% failure rate at the low end.
I don't want to deny someone the pursuit of love.
I gotta tell you, my attorney kind of said the same thing, Chris. I wonder why. So as we, you went through COVID and you're at this point in your business, seriously though, I want to know, what is it about your approach to law and practice that adds value to a client versus, because you go to lawyers.com and it's like, oh my God, I mean, I didn't know there were that many out there. So how do you differentiate yourself from somebody else?
No, I think that's a good question. I think a big part of it is I say it like it is. Like when I'm giving someone a consultation, I will just tell them, hey, you're in a bad situation. I won't beat around the bush, and I'll give them a very black and white picture of their situation. And people love that. They always tell me, I appreciate your honesty, Chris. I spoke to John Doe down the street, and he had a different opinion, but he didn't say the things that you said, or he didn't explain how custody works, or I mean, you wouldn't believe people. I just took someone on. She's been with the same lawyer for like 6 months, fired her, came to me. This client was never explained how alimony works, how child support works, how division of assets work. And that's all something I do right off the bat in a consultation. So people are fairly well educated when I talk to them about how everything works, and they like that. It's just like when you go to the doctor, right? You go to your doctor's office and your primary care is like, hey, we're going to take your blood, we're going to test for all this nonsense, right? I mean, it's good to know, and you feel good about knowing what it is that they're doing. You don't want to be like, oh yeah, just stick me with a bunch of stuff and don't tell me. I don't know, maybe you do.
No, I try to avoid the doctor at all costs. But anyway, you've done this and you built it by being honest with your clients, and I would appreciate that. My attorney is very forthcoming with me about the expectation, what may happen, and I really appreciate that. And as you're building your business, what's in the future for your law practice?
I don't have any choice, but I have to expand. I mean, since I got out of law school, I have hired an associate attorney. I have 2 law clerks and a paralegal. At one point, it was just me, and I was struggling with like 5 active clients. Now the firm has, at any given time, about 75 active clients, and I also have enough counsel attorneys. So I have really 2 attorneys that work for me, 2 law clerks, the paralegal, and I really need another attorney. The problem is finding attorneys is really difficult, which is contrary to what I said earlier.
I was going to say,
Yeah, there's been a big change, and I don't know what it is, but I speak to a lot of colleagues, and they're in the same boat. Hey, Chris, you know anyone looking for civil litigation or whatever, med mal? And I'm like, no, I don't. I'm looking for someone myself. But not only that, but no one wants to do family law, right? I mean, if you look at the attorneys on the South Shore, a lot of them have been practicing for 20 plus years. There's really no one that's been practicing like me at all. I mean, I think out of all the attorneys I've gone up against, there's been maybe 2 that have been in the same boat as me. But other than that, I go up against attorneys all the time that have been practicing 20 plus years. So I don't know what's going to happen in 10 years when they all retire. It's going to be just me, I guess. I don't know. But, I mean, even your lawyer, how old do you think your lawyer is? Come on now, Chris, put you on the spot.
No. She might be diminutive in stature, but her bite is worse than her bark. And, she's had to put her boot up where the sun doesn't shine a couple of times. I'm not going there. I'm going to say that she is quite experienced. Let's leave it at that. And I've taken notes through all these cases, right? So, what you're saying is, if you have the idea to go into law, now's a pretty good time to do it.
I think so. I mean, you can't go wrong. You can do anything you want with a law degree. Like, you don't have to be a lawyer if you don't want to. You can go teach. I mean, you have technically a doctorate. It's a JD, a Juris Doctorate. You can go teach at a college or a university, or You can go into politics. I mean, there's a lot of stuff you can do. You can go work for a government agency or work at the DA's office.
But I just heard it's a no BS school. Like, you really have to apply yourself. Like, it's a brutal experience.
It is, yeah. You got to put your head down. You have to apply yourself. It's important to do well in school. And I treated it like a job, right? Because I was getting paid to go to school. So I was like, it's no different than a job. I'm going to wake up in the morning on time. I'm going to take the commute around to Boston. I'm going to get there at a certain time. I'm going to be early, 15 minutes prior. And I'm going to go to all my classes. I'm going to do all the reading. Because if I don't and I fail, I won't get paid. Right?
That's
I won't
quite
get my
the
housing
motivation.
allowance.
That's quite the motivation.
And you got to take advantage of all the things that law school has to offer. Like, I was on the Law Journal, and I did family law clinics. Like, not everyone does those things.
And you've gotten rated really highly in this part of the country. Like, you've won some awards and stuff, right?
Yeah. Past 2 years, so for 20 and 2021, I was rated as a rising star. Only 2.5% of lawyers in the family law category actually get that in Massachusetts. And it's not something I can pay for, or I can't promote myself for it. It's totally peer-reviewed, surveyed, credentials, things like that.
So you're good. You're good at your job. I mean, don't be bashful. Just say he's good at his job, ladies and gentlemen.
It's fair to say I'm better than some, but not as good as others, I suppose.
Spoken like a true, fitness report on the Marine Corps. So you've done this. You're in a way the American success story and the post Marine Corps veteran experience success story. How can people find you if they want to have you consult them?
You can Google me. You can Google my name, Christopher Sawin, or attorney Christopher Sawin. I'm the first thing that comes up. You can Google the firm, Sawin Law PC. First thing that comes up. I think I have almost like 30 Google reviews. People love to look at those. You can go on the website.
Yeah, they do.
Yeah, I'm on the website. You can fill out a form. The number's on there. We're on Facebook, LinkedIn.
I'll have all those links in the Oscar Mike Radio show post. There'll be no excuse. And I definitely want that blog post.
Absolutely, it's on there. Just for fathers. It's all about fathers' rights.
Awesome. Well, again, my name is Travis with Oscar Mike Radio. I'm with fellow Marine Corps veteran Chris Sawin, attorney at law in Hingham, Massachusetts. It's been great talking with you, Chris. And as we close down, when you terminate that relationship with your client for better or worse, let's just talk for better because I want to end on a positive note. I will say there's going to be a time where I won't need my attorney anymore, but I will say that it's nice that we've had the relationship we've had. How do you leave your clients?
So whenever I end a case, I always send what's called a closing letter. Basically says, hey, Travis, I did a great job for you. I did a great job for you. I have to send you this letter to let you know that I have to keep your file and everything. And then I always say, I'm always here if you need me. But you have to know that this letter means I don't represent you anymore, but you can always come back to me. And then I mailed them out a really nice Yeti tumbler with my logo on it. And that way, every time they drink, whatever it is they're drinking, they're going to think of me.
Always be thinking, always be repping.
That's
It's
right.
very important even for you all. Well, I want to thank you for coming on Oscar Mike Radio. And, if you have probate or family court issues, it's a very trying time. But there's nothing like a Marine to represent you, and I want to thank you again, Chris.
Thank you very much. Awesome. Great being here.
I want to thank you for joining me and watching Oscar Mike Radio. Now go to OscarMikeRadio.com and click Shop to check out all the cool merchandise from Authentically American. All proceeds go to veteran service organizations. We are Mission in Flight.